This video is kindly sponsored by MPB. Today I'm scouting a new bit of forest, and generally when I scout I either don't have a camera with me at all or I have my 24 to 120mm lens on. Now my usual method when I do this is to walk around a lot, to observe and to find inspiration for wide landscape scenes. And I'm going to do the same thing, but instead I'm going to walk around with my 100 to 400mm telephoto lens to encourage myself to see a different perspective. I think that this means that I'm more likely to come away with intimate scenes, and I think it will encourage me to see beyond the usual compositional ideas that I would come away with. There are some great trees around here, but they're all sort of jumbled in a frenzy of oak, so I think it's going to take a bit of time, a bit of patience to sort of pull this jigsaw puzzle apart and observe the individual pieces. Right, well I've done a loop of this area now and I feel a bit more familiar with it, and I have lots of ideas. I do have quite a few ideas for wider landscapes, but I think they will be better in autumn. But I do have a few ideas for telephoto, more intimate close-up shots as well. So I think I'm going to start here by this pathway that I first walked down to enter this clearing. I love these two trees on the left here. I love all of this soft grass that we have growing either side of this narrow trail. So I want to get these two trees on the left in, but I also want that tree on the right in as well to balance the image. Now if I go from about here at 100mm, I can get all three trunks in, but I can't get those branches on the left, and I think I want to include them. But if I move backwards to make room for that, yeah, see, I can get it all in here, but you lose that pathway, and we've got a huge amount of grass in the bottom right there that really doesn't need to be there. So I think we'll try a crop with just these tree trunks and then a pano to try and get those branches in on the left as well. So a few of you will probably notice that I have a tripod plate on the bottom of my collar there, and it's not necessary because this fits in perfectly fine without it. But I just want to explain myself. So I think I popped this on here a very long time ago just to sort of keep it safe so I didn't lose it. And for some reason the logical thing was to pop it on the bottom of there. And I just haven't taken it off since. And it's now to the point where it's actually really tight. And I'm going to have to get a screwdriver to get it off. And I just haven't been bothered to do it yet. So that is why I have that on there unnecessarily. I think this scene would look fantastic in early autumn with some autumnal colours just to break up those yellows and greens a bit. So this is a scene I'm definitely going to revisit at some point. And also right now the light's sort of coming through behind me and it's hitting this tree trunk on the right there, which is a bit before the other two trees and that grass there, but it's not quite reaching the pathway in the back. And that's sort of where I'd want it to go, so it leads your eye through the image. So again, this is one that I'm probably going to come back to at a different time of day to see if I can get better light. I quite like that image, but you don't really quite get to see how twisted and magnificent all of these tree branches are, the way they're just spreading and curling over each other. So I wonder if I can get a shot that focuses more on that. I'm sure I walked down a path somewhere over here where we may be able to get a different vantage point, a different view of that tree. Let's check it out. Where is it? Oh yes, I think this will work. Yes, I think that's perfect. Gnarly branches like this sort of remind me of ink spreading. You know, when you have a really, really damp bit of paper and you drop some ink or some paint onto it and then it just spreads across the surface. That is what this reminds me of, and I absolutely love it. So I think I'm going to attempt a handheld shot, because it's extremely bright right now, so I should be able to manage it with my shaky hands. Cool. I chose to bring my telephoto with me today because it is my least used lens, and I'm trying to utilize it a little more because, in all honesty, I have considered getting rid of it at times because I just really don't take it out that often. Now, obviously, a telephoto lens has its place in landscape photography, and I plan to use mine for more general landscape images, but I'm curious to know, does a telephoto lens have its place in woodland photography? Because in all honesty, I don't see many woodland photographers going out and photographing at 400mm unless they're photographing wildlife. Now, the forest is a very busy place. There is stuff everywhere, everything's just smushed together in tight spaces. It's difficult to get separation, to pick things out, to pull things apart. And if you can't rely on colour in different seasons, you can't rely on light, you can't rely on weather, you know, fog for separation, and you have to rely on subjects specifically, then I think a complete change of perspective and going for more intimate scenes like a telephoto or macro lens can be really, really interesting and quite motivating. I've just noticed a bit of wood that is nailed into the tree trunk. Very randomly, there must have been something on there, a bird box or something at some point. It's obviously come off. We just got this bit of wood with 4 nails in it, just hanging there. And I wouldn't have noticed that unless I was stood here, just staring at this tree, and looking at it, observing it through a telephoto lens. This is a pretty nice little area here. Now, I have changed oak tree location because the last one was getting a bit noisy between felling and forestry work. In fact, we're close to the road here right now, so I am going to walk deeper into the forest so we don't have all that road noise. So while I do that, I just want to thank MPB for sponsoring today's video. MPB is a global platform that offers a safe and easy way to sell, trade and upgrade your gear, and gives the creators the chance to buy affordable kits so that everybody can do photography or videography, whatever it is that you want to do. MPB recirculates hundreds and thousands of used bits of photo and video gear every single year all around the world. But why should you buy with them? MPB gives you a vast variety of camera brands, from the latest mirrorless models to the good old trusty DSLR. Buying used can cost up to 1/3 less than buying new, so your budget can stretch further. MPB also focus on sustainability, so we can all have the kit that we want in a way that is good for the planet. In my experience, MPB is incredibly reliable. The kit is tested, it is photographed, and it is given a condition rating so you know exactly what it is that you are buying. If you want to know more about MPB, then I'll leave a link in the description box below for you to check out, or you can ask me questions. And thanks once again to MPB for sponsoring today's video. So I have a really nice intimate scene here of some silver birch trees with some moss on them and some ferns. I love this leaning tree trunk with a leaning fern. And what initially drew my eye to this scene was the fact that we had this spotlight of sunlight on that fern in the foreground. And typically it's gone. The clouds have come over, the sunlight has gone in. And that sunlight was just really drawing your attention to that fern, to that bottom part of the image. It was just really, really beautiful. And I still don't mind this scene with this overcast light. It's still quite nice. I'm still going to take it anyway, but I have my fingers crossed that that light comes back because it really was spectacular. Now, with a scene like this, we have a lot of tree trunks. So the trick or the trouble is to make sure that those out of focus ones in the background aren't overlapping or causing distractions away from the three in the foreground. So I'm trying to just sort of zoom in on my screen, because working on a small screen when you've got a lot of elements like that is kind of difficult. You don't really notice something until you get the image home onto your computer and you think, darn, how did I not notice that tree that's just like sticking out in the background? So I'm trying to just double check and just shift myself slightly so that I'm happy with it. I think I'm getting into the telephoto swing of things, and I sometimes feel as though the first few photos of a shoot can sometimes feel like pulling teeth, but when you get going, get a few photos out the way, inspiration just flows a little better. As you can tell, I absolutely love working with trees in the forest, because to me the forest is not just a bunch of trees, it's a whole load of character, story, interpretation, imagination. My imagination can just run wild. I love seeing what I can find. And there are a couple of trees here, we're right on the road again, by the way, if you hear traffic. There are a couple of trees here that are overlapping each other that I think could be a really interesting image. These two trees together to me look like some kind of symbol or rune or ancient alphabet lettering, and to me it's got a really strong energy to it, or sort of like strength or protection or power or something. So because it's right on the edge of the forest on the road, I like to imagine that these two trees are just sort of protecting this forest. So I think we're going to give this a shot, get the telephoto lens, get in there, take the photo. So my final thoughts of a telephoto lens in the forest. I think it was a really nice challenge, a different perspective, different change of pace. I think it certainly made me think a bit more and observe more in terms of subject matter. I noticed things that I may have normally overlooked. That being said, there were definitely times where I wished I had a completely different lens with me instead of this one. But yeah, I would do this again. I think I approached it today in more of a landscape style and sort of focused more on tree trunks, tree shapes, but maybe going with more of a macro approach could be quite interesting. Textures, you know, really isolating small singular subjects. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to go and crawl back behind a tree as a forest goblin does. Until next time.